Former Louder with Crowder employee made a video alleging all kinds of systematic abuse at the hands of his former employer, Louder with Crowder, right? And they have responded. I'm going to talk about that today, so buckle up.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to my vidcast, Studio Jake, where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to my locals. The link is in the description. All right, so Jared didn't name his employer in his initial video. He kept calling them the former employer, and out of respect for him, in my video analyzing his video, I didn't name his former employer. However, they have decided to out themselves, as what often happens in these cases, and it is Louder with Crowder, of course, hosted by conservative comedian Steven Crowder. Now, Crowder was not present. Instead, I guess he's the CEO of Louder with Crowder of Mug Club, that being Gerald G. Morgan Jr. And by the way, I don't think that's weird at all. I think that was actually smart by Crowder letting Gerald handle that. I think that was a good move. And I want to go over it. I watched it in its entirety. And by the way, don't take my word for anything I describe. If you think I'm off, if you think I misrepresented something, go watch the full video. It's on the Louder with Crowder. I think it's actually called the Steven Crowder channel on Rumble. So watch it there. Don't take my word for it, okay? So I just want to make that clear. By the way, anything I say is just my opinion if I commentate. So I took some notes while I was writing, and there were a few things I wanted to highlight. Gerald G. Morgan Jr., like I said, he made the note that this absence by Crowder was planned 2 weeks ago, has nothing to do with Jared Monroe's video. And one thing I did think that was a little weird is when I first logged on to it, the video was originally titled Here's the Truth. They changed the name. By the way, they were like 30 minutes late. They were supposed to go live at 7. They didn't go live till 7:30. Very unprofessional. But they changed the name just before they went on. I'd say about 15 minutes before they went on to Here's What You Don't Know, from Here's the Truth to Here's What You Don't Know. And I also thought they played 2 intros. Why not just play I understand maybe playing the Louder with Crowder Strange Animal theme song just to kind of present a sense of normalcy, but I did think that was weird. They played one of their songs, one of their song parodies that the show's kind of famous for, and then went into the intro, and then here comes Gerald. So he comes on and he says, "None of this has to happen." He adds, "We didn't choose this, it was chosen for us." Now, here is what he is postulating. Gerald is saying that a negative publicity campaign is targeting Steven Crowder. He name drops Jared and questions the timing of Jared's video because it relates to a meeting that is going on with Crowder and his soon-to-be ex-wife Hillary. So he also claimed that Jared is not being sued, but then acknowledged that they did file a suit. So I thought that was weird. So he's saying Jared, but also in Jared's video, he also said that Jared wanted to do some filing so he can get some of his deals, removed in the court. It wasn't just about him being sued. And now here's where it gets interesting. Gerald claims that Jared is working with Hillary Crowder, Steven's soon-to-be ex-wife, and that Hillary's father, so Crowder's ex-father-in-law, is behind everything. He's the one orchestrating this. He reads from a court document from 2022 where his father-in-law says we need to get them all together, basically. And they said that and he showed a text message with Jared where Jared said that if he and Hillary teamed up, it would be the end of Crowder. So what's interesting too, though, is that before and later Gerald says, and I'll get to that in a minute, but he says that they weren't after his private communication. Okay, so why are you showing a screenshot with Jared's private communication? Now, I know this came from Hillary's father, but still they filed a motion to get, I guess, Jared's private communication. He says they didn't, that they just told him to stop doing this. So anyway, basically, he reads through more documents from the divorce, and some of them are very compelling. I'm going to be honest. He keeps referencing this divorce and pushing this theory that Hillary, Jared, and a few other people are working behind the scenes to basically try to smear Crowder so Hillary can get more from the divorce. And he added that they are actually going to sue Hillary for extortion and torturous interference. So, extortion because Gerald was saying that because in some of these correspondence between Hillary's father-in-law, her, and her lawyer, it's kind of they to me it just I'm going to be well, I'll get to that in a minute, but basically that they were planning this just to get more out of the divorce. Now, he also references the infamous ring footage, the very compelling where I'm going to be real with you. Steven Crowder was acting like a bully in that ring video, and that's me being complimentary. He was being I shouldn't say complimentary, that's me being generous to the description. He was being a bully, he was being rude. His wife is pregnant with his twins. There is no justification for that, even if he was just having a bad day. Now, Gerald, without evidence, is suggesting that Hillary actually deleted all of her ring footage. 2,000 hours were scrubbed, and an additional 18 seconds to that video was removed. It now again, he says they're going to post all these things on Twitter. Their overlay machine malfunctioned, and so maybe they will be putting that on Twitter. I look forward to seeing those. This is just sort of my initial reaction. So he also goes off on Hillary's lawyer. She hired an entertainment industry lawyer, a guy named Brian Friedman, who has I'm going to be again, I'm going to be honest here. He's kind of one of those typical scumbag lawyers. He's definitely one of those. He's represented some really reprehensible people. He is a lawyer. That's what lawyers do sometimes. Alan Dershowitz, right? But he kind of goes off on this and is trying to make this seem nefarious. But I would like to point out Crowder is in the entertainment industry himself. On the conservative side, he's an independent conservative comedian. And he has this big powerhouse that is Mug Club, that is Laura with Crowder. It kind of makes sense to me that she would hire an entertainment industry lawyer as part of this process. Now, I have a feeling this guy is expensive. We don't know, what all this is going to entail, obviously, but I did think that he was trying to make a mountain out of a molehill when it came to that. But anyway, so then one of the things that Jared said was that he was subjected to some inappropriate behavior. And again, he doesn't name anyone. He just says that his former employer, which could be generalized, he could mean Crowder, he could mean the Mud Club organization itself. Gerald claims that the opposite is true, that Jared is the one who would regularly expose himself to Crowder. I find and what's interesting is Gerald keeps trying to make this point that sometimes when they were doing costumes, Crowder would wear kind of skimpy outfits because they would have to do body paint and stuff like that for the skits. So that's where so sometimes it was because it was so skimpy, it was very revealing. They talked about that when the report came out by all the former employees. They addressed it line by line, and Gerald restated that fact in this video. So I have to be honest, he's going to have to provide me some serious proof. Now, to be fair, so does Jared. If Jared if there was inappropriate conduct with Jared, he has to provide proof as well. But I I just don't think that is true. He's basically what Gerald was saying was way back with Crowder's radio days that Jared would just expose himself during radio calls just to try to, I guess, just try to make Crowder laugh. I'm going to be curious to see how Jared responds to this. Now, the here's one that I find was kind of a interesting twist. If this is true, this does not look good for the parties opposing Crowder. So he is also claiming that Hillary tried to take away Stephen Crowder's dog. I hope that's not true. She alleges that the dog was dangerous for the children, or Gerald is saying she said that. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say that that looks bad. Let's be honest. You shouldn't take a man's dog, even if during a point of emotional turmoil. But again, that's just an allegation. Again, Gerald didn't provide any screenshots or anything. He said he was in the room with Crowder, that Crowder almost broke down in tears. I have to be honest. I have my dog sitting across the room from me right now. If someone tried to take him from me and my wife, I would fight tooth and nail to keep that from happening. So now he's trying to say that then he says that both Hillary and Jared approached him, Gerald, to abandon Crowder. And Gerald made this big speech about how he's loyal, that he'll be Steven's friend. And even if they part ways through Mug Club or from Mug Club, he will still be Steven's friend. He will still stand. He was with Steven before he even got a paycheck. And I thought that was very sincere. Okay, yeah, sure. Stand up for your friend. I have a best friend. I would go to bat for him even if he was accused of murder. I would stand by him. So kudos to Gerald for his loyalty to his friend. Um, Now, this story was interesting. So he says that Hillary texted Crowder's address to Jared, and that then suddenly Crowder got a mysterious package that basically said had some sort of threatening connotation to it. And Gerald was calling that doxing. That's not what doxing is. I'm sorry if Hillary did do this. She shouldn't have sent her soon to be ex husband's address to Jared unless Jared needed it for some sort of legal reason, like to send him legal documents during all this turmoil that's going on. She shouldn't have done that. Okay, fair enough. But to call it doxing, that's an exaggeration. What doxing would have been is if Hillary, again, this is allegedly, or Jared, posted it on the internet for all to find and all to see. That's what doxing is. It's not sending it to someone who might have a reason to send that person a thing. That's happened to me before. One time I got a book. I didn't know who it was from, and it freaked me out. Well, it turned out a Catholic priest who I am acquainted with, he wanted to send me this book for a class he was teaching. He wanted me to read it, and I didn't know it was from him, but he had gotten my address from someone else. I don't know why he didn't just reach out to me, but he got it from someone else. And I'm going to be honest, it made me shake in my boots a little bit. But but he didn't dox me, or the person who gave him my address didn't dox me. That's not what doxing is. So I just want to be clear on that terminology. So then he says that Jared signed the NDA voluntarily, that there was no coercion. He didn't have to sign it. He could have walked away. But as Jared put it in his own video, he alleges that they were saying you're not going to get any sort of severance package if you don't sign this NDA. And, I've heard that happen to many of people, many of friends of mine have had that happen to them where they feel like they're in a place where they have to get the severance package. So they sign NDAs even though they don't want to. That has happened to many of friends of mine who have worked in the conservative media. NDAs are supposed to protect trade secrets. They're not supposed to prevent you from talking bad about your employer. That's freedom of speech. You should be allowed to bash your former boss as much as you want. And, now, there's obviously going to be questions about that, and that can be hashed out in a court. But, I don't think that NDA should prevent you from disparaging your former employee. And he says that Jared signed it voluntarily, he breached it, and that he said he was, again, I mentioned this earlier, that Jared was lying about them wanting his private communications. But again, then he showed a screenshot earlier before their overlay machine malfunctioned. He showed a screenshot of Jared's private communication. So, which is it? Did you want it or not? Because you are showing it on screen as part of your little evidence bag, but then you do it. Now, he says that it was just the lawsuit that they're filing and that the notices that they had been sending Jared were all to get him to stop talking bad about Steven Crowder. Hate to break it to you, that's Jared's rights as an American to talk bad about his work experiences. So that's just how it is. Um, Now, he kind of concludes by saying that Hillary Crowder is responsible for everything, that she is behind all this. Her and her father are bringing all these people together to put pressure on Crowder in his divorce. And I would just like, again, I would like to point out Crowder is the one with the big media presence and fan base behind him. Now, Does that make some of the tactics if that they're alleging not sketchy? No, they're very sketchy in some cases. That if the allegations are true, I would like to qualify that. But again, it's kind of like Crowder is the one with all the power here, and if we're looking up that ladder, and so it makes kind of sense that they would get help from other people who have had bad experiences allegedly with Crowder. So you know, I've met Steven Crowder once. I have a photo of him on my Facebook page of me and him when he visited the Daily Wire when I was employed there. I found him to be very friendly. He was very nice. He didn't treat any of the people there poorly when he visited. He was very nice. I can't remember who was with him. It was but one of his entourage. They were all very nice. Uh, but I'm not friends with him. I did at one point during my unemployment. I did try to fill out an job application. Obviously, I didn't end up there, and I'm very happy with the job I have now. I'm just saying that all to say that my connection to this is very, very few and far between. Now, Gerald concludes by saying that Jared should just move on. That it's time. It's been since August 2018, and he just needs to move on from this. Well, when you're sending him court documents, it's kind of hard for him to move on. See what I'm saying? I've got to be honest. After hearing Gerald's whole spiel about this, after hearing Jared's response or Jared's video and the Crowder response, Gerald spent more time talking about the divorce than he did about Jared's video. I was expecting it because Jared's in the thumbnail that the video has him to go line by line and contradict Jared. He didn't do that. He complained about what was going on with the divorce. This is a very messy situation, and it's a very messy divorce, and that happens. I wish them all the best. I hope that all parties involved are happy with the final results. Divorce is always messy. I'm not going to accuse anyone of a crime. I'm not going to say who is more right, who is more wrong. And even if it seemed that way, I'm just trying to explain from a point of view. I think that I hate to say this, but I think the video Gerald made was a mistake. He should have just responded to Jared instead of airing all of this deluge out. And if the divorce needed to be brought up in a certain thing, then he should have brought that in. Now, again, he made a big point of saying Jared is raising money for a lawsuit. And he says, but we didn't file one. Oh, yes, we did this morning, actually. That looked bad. So, if Jared knew that you were going to sue him, of course he's going to raise money for it. But on the other hand, Gerald makes a lot of great points in the video. That's why I'm saying go watch it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. This is a messy divorce. All parties involved are having it out because Crowder is such a public figure. And what it boils down to is who seems more trustworthy. Now, for my part, I made it clear that I've been through similar situations to Jared, not to the extreme nature that Jared is alleging in his video, but I understand because I've been on the back end of conservative media and I understand it can be a grueling place. I mentioned how difficult it was when I was writing for Red Millennial. It was incredibly difficult to write for the upper echelons of that organization, which was very small, by the way. It wasn't like Louder with Crowder. It was a very small operation, but still sometimes it was very difficult to work with those. So anyway, I just would like to say that I wish everyone well. I hope that it works out in the end. And I really hope that this can just go, because right now it's an 11 and it really only needs to be a 3. So I hope that the dial gets turned down and that they can find some sort of amicable split. It's time. Let's move on from this. That is one thing Gerald said that is correct fully, that, it's time to move on from this. It's everyone involved needs to heal.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die